Person committee that makes up the Hall of Fame selections, and we've had another wonderful class this year. Before I introduce Kevin, I wanted to announce that hopefully this group in this room tonight can join the group that we had last year. On September the 21st is the night of Celebrate Chaminade here on campus. And we'd like to invite all the Hall of Famers and their family back to Chaminade for a celebration, and then to be brought out on the football field prior to our game against our friends down on Highway 40, the St. Louis U-High Billikens. So look in the mail for some follow-up information, but we're going to bring the first two classes out that evening. One of our members who was in last year's class from South Africa will be in town that evening, and so we thought we'd bring everybody out that night. Without further ado, one of our long-standing coaches here at Chaminade, most successful for the last 38 years, most of which coaching swimming and football here at Chaminade, Mr. Kevin Brennan.
Thank you. So good to see all you here tonight. It's my distinct honor to be your MC this evening. Last year at this time, we got ready for the banquet, Jim came to me and he said, would you be the MC at the first Hall of Fame banquet? And I was really touched that he would ask me. He said, it's a great honor, you've been around here a long time and you know everybody, and I said I'd be happy to do it. And I was ecstatic about being the first MC. Then Coach Mo says to me, that's no big deal, he couldn't find anybody else to do it. So, I am passionate about Chaminade and passionate about Chaminade sports. And we talked about putting this Hall of Fame together for years. And I was glad finally that last year Jim finally got a committee together and we started this, because we have 101 years of sports tradition here. And we have many, many quality young men who have been in this program. And it's a great honor tonight to bring 7 more individuals and 1 more team into our Hall of Fame. This is going to become a bigger and bigger night every year and more important. And we have 7 great individuals and 1 great team to put in tonight. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first inductee, Mr. Phil Todt, who will be presented to you by his son Chuck.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I'm unhappy in one sense that my dad couldn't be here, because he would have enjoyed being able to talk to his fellow students in my life. He's told me so many stories, most of which I cannot repeat to you, about Chaminade. He wanted me to go to school here. But my dad and I, on some occasions, didn't agree. I wanted to go to the high school. Those of you who live here know what that was. And it finally worked out. I didn't go to Chaminade, but my father never let me forget that I didn't go. There are so many things I could say about him. I truly miss him. A great athlete. One of the best first basemen to ever play the game. He was discovered here, playing baseball here, by a guy by the name of Ricky. I think we all know who that is. And he wanted to draft my dad then. My dad was 16 years old and was in his 3rd year at Chaminade. I'm not going to bring you through a 15-year career, but I'll tell you just some of the highlights. My dad wanted to leave. My grandfather said that when Mr. Ricky talked to him about being drafted and going away to spring training, my dad said, when do I leave? But his father would not let him finish here at Chaminade. Actually, he finished 4 years and 3 years. The following year, the Cardinals drafted him, and he went to Tucson to play. And he played that year, and he had a good year. But for some reason, next year at spring training, they didn't notify him. So the Browns found out that my dad had not been notified, and they took him to spring training for the Browns. A guy by the name of, what's the first baseball commissioner's name? Anybody? Say again? That's it. Anyway, the very first case that he decided was the case between the Browns and the Cardinals as to who got my dad. And the team that was going to win that controversy had to keep him for a year. A year in the big leagues at age 17 was my dad's very fortunate year. After that, he was traded to the Boston Red Sox. He started for the Boston Red Sox at first base for almost 7 years. The Red Sox were the same then as they are now, a favorite team, a team you wanted to play for. And then he was traded to the Philadelphia Athletics. I actually remember Connie Mack with the big collar and just a delightful man. And my dad played here in St. Louis in the World Series in 1928 between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Philadelphia Athletics. And I have some things over there. I have the glove that he wore during that game. I have a hat that he had, and I have the ball, the first ball that was thrown out to start that World Series. After he played that year with Philadelphia, he was traded to the St. Paul Saints, which is a AAA club. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details about his 6 years managing minor league baseball clubs. By the time he was then in his 30s, baseball was over for him. He came back to St. Louis and opened a floral shop, had me working in a nursing home, I think. In any event, he spent the rest of his life here and was involved in baseball and in different ways. I went to a lot of old-timers games. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're the son of a major leaguer, you have tickets to every game. I went to a lot of games. And if there are two things that I would remember most about my dad, he was one hell of a baseball player. He was a strong Catholic. And he learned both those things right here. Right here, Chaplain.
Can you imagine playing baseball here in 1918? In fact, home plate was right there where that camera was in 1918. That's how close they had it. Chaminade is a school of family tradition. A lot of families have gone through here, fathers, sons, grandsons now. Our next inductee, that is so true. Mr. Ed Gerker went here in the 40s. His sons and his nephews have attended Chaminade. His grandson is here now. His one son was our principal for 14 years. Mr. Gerker is going to be presented by his son, Dan Gerker.
I'm going to be a little bit more formal. I have actually written a brief speech. On behalf of my mom, Ginny, my sisters, Judy and Sally, and my brother, Jim, and our entire family, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for this great honor for my father, Ed Gerker. Dad always held the belief that academics was the foundation of any school, but that the walls and the roof were interwoven with athletics. That education paid your bills, but your participation in athletics developed desire, dedication, preparation, discipline, and accountability. Skills and values that carry you through your career, your relationships, and through your life. Dad was born in Flint, Michigan in July of 1922 and moved to St. Louis when he was a young boy. He attended Chaminade from 1936 through 1940, beginning a legacy here that remains ongoing today. And Kevin actually mentioned this school has been in existence for just over 100 years, and a member of our family has been associated here either as a student, an educator, or administrator for approximately 49 of those years. When my son Jack graduates in 2015, hopefully, he will be the 9th Gerker to receive a Chaminade education, hopefully not the last. Now, we're not the biggest family legacy, but I think we're probably in the top 5. Dad played on 9 varsity teams during his time here in football, basketball, and baseball, acting as captain of several of those teams. The teams had very good success, including an undefeated 1939 Catholic League championship in football. He was granted a full football scholarship to Michigan State, actually, after his graduation, but decided to stay close to home and played for Don Faroe at Missouri. Coach Faroe invented the split T formation in the early 1940s, and that led to a Sugar Bowl appearance after the 1941 season. Unfortunately, they lost to Fordham, the 4 blocks of granite, in a driving rainstorm in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans about 3 weeks after Pearl Harbor. One campus publication described my dad as keg-legged Ed Gerker that handles the ball well, knows how to fake or lateral from the tee, and is a crushing blocker and tackler. He's built like an Army tank and just as solid, Ed will call our signals. Dad played 1 more year at Missouri before joining the Marine Corps and playing a year at Purdue University while attending Officers Training School. That team ended up undefeated, but because of the war, they did not play a bowl game, nor were they ranked. After the war, Dad finished his college career at Missouri and was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. He was offered a dazzling lucrative contract of $35 a game, which, because of his growing family, he had to turn down. In many ways, this is when life began for my dad. During the war, he had commanded a tank on Saipan and Tinian in the Pacific, and had spent 6 months at Ground Zero at Nagasaki after the bomb was dropped, obviously, in command of 300 men. He remained in the Marine Corps for 19 years, including the reserves, including a training role in the Korean War. Dad was involved in everything and always strove for perfection. I think we can all agree on that. And participation. He was, in no particular order, salutatorian of his class here at Chaminade. He was the owner with his brother and his nephews of the Ben Gerker Company for over 35 years. He was president of the Chaminade Fathers Club for a year, president of the Missouri Alumni Association, a member of the 10,000 Men West Club, not sure even what that is, a member of the Knights of Columbus, a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, a member of the American Legion, a member of the Marine Corps 2nd Division Tankers Association. He was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity at Missouri, and he was also a Marianist affiliate. This was not a man who let the grass grow under his feet. Dad passed away in 2004 after a series of illnesses, but I think I can speak with confidence that this would be one of his proudest moments. He loved sports, especially football, but he loved his school even more. Ironically, there are some very interesting connections here tonight. Scott Justice's grandfather, Jack Schreiber, was one of my dad's closest friends his entire life. I shared classrooms, the baseball diamond, the football field with Bob Housladen and Ted Stepanovic. Jim Prague is one of my brother's closest friends. And Kevin Brennan's brother, Bron, was one of my closest friends during high school also. Congratulations to all the other inductees. You were all very well deserved of this honor. Thank you.
Dan left out one thing. Mr. Gerker, I think, was one of his proudest moments was probably in the fall of 1977. At that time, his son Jim was coaching our soccer team. His son Dan was playing on it. And I'll never forget, you could go down to the soccer field and all you would hear was this, "Go Chaminade!" It was Mr. Gerker. We knew he was there. Our next inductee is Mr. Bob O'Brien, class of '54. He was a multi-sport athlete here at Chaminade during that time, and he will be introduced by Father Jim Tobin, who was in the class of 1954. Father?
Thank you. I'm honored to be here this evening. I asked Bob if I should give a homily. He said, "No, give a sermon and take up a collection." So we won't do that. But I'm really honored to be here with Bob and 6 or 7 are wonderful classmates. We're really a tight class, and we still get together every first Friday for Mass at Pillar and followed by breakfast at Schneidhorst, and we just have a great spirit and great class. And I remember Bob first came in our class in 1948, and 7th grade. And we had brothers or priests married us, brothers or priests teaching us from all the way through high school. And Bob was always very active in sports. Our senior year, he was running back in football, forward in basketball, first base, baseball, and Herb Schwartz, Pat, and his beloved wife, and myself were cheerleaders. So, but our whole class was, we're really proud of Bob. He's a great friend, a great pal, great sportsman, and the brothers taught us all well. And they really imbued the whole Mariners spirit in our class. And for that, I know we're all very grateful. And it's been a wonderful gift. And Bob, we're so proud of you and happy for you. And one other note, one of our classmates, Joe Viviano's son, was ordained priest today in Jefferson City Diocese. So congratulations to Father Viviano. That's wonderful, Joe. And Joe's with us this evening as well to celebrate Bob's Hall of Fame honor this evening. So thank you, Bob O'Brien, for being a great classmate in 54. We're all proud of you, happy for you, and want to assure you of our best wishes, our congratulations, and continued prayers. Thanks for living the spirit of Estovere at Chaminade and passing on the great legacy that Marinus left us. God bless you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob,
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
I get mine before I speak. I want to thank Father Jim, and I want to thank him for not changing the script that I gave him. I do want to recognize my classmates. I wish they'd stand up and be recognized. You're looking at true Estovere men. I'm honored and humbled, and I came to Chaminade 60 years ago, and I was mentored by Brother Ralph, and he's a wonderful man. He's deceased now. I went through high school with different coaches. Our senior coach was Mr. Buffa. He's deceased also. I guess the closest camaraderie I had with the teams was our basketball team, Joe Viviano, Bill Summers, and two of our deceased members, Frank Takeoff and Dave Dickens. Great people. I had a wonderful time here at Chaminade, and they instilled in me some things that I'm not aware of myself of Estovere, and I thank you.
Our next inductee is Mr. Pete Neese, class of 1960. He was a multi-sport athlete while he was here at Chaminade, and he is going to be presented to you by his brother Paul.
From the time he was a little kid, Pete was an outstanding athlete. Mom always said he was born with a ball in his hand, and it was true. He started here in 7th grade, and all through high school he played all the sports: football, basketball, baseball, and track. He played first-string fullback from the time he was a sophomore on. He was so good, I spent my athletic career in his shadow. They would pair us up for tackling practice. I'd hit him and he'd get up. He'd hit me and I'd get up slowly. I only made one touchdown in my whole career, and they were so used to writing his name that he got the credit. He even had a fan club. That was cool. He even let me date some of them. Well, he graduated Chaminade and joined the Mariners. And during his novitiate, he was playing touch football, of course, and broke his nose. After graduating from St. Mary's University, he decided to do other things and then found himself 1A for the draft. He found the Marines to be a very good fit and went to pilot training and then flew heavy helicopters. They say once a Marine, always a Marine.
Semper Fi.
Sure seems to be true in his case. He went to Vietnam and enjoyed the Tet Offensive in '68 and never got a scratch. That's quite an accomplishment. But he came home and promptly crashed his motorcycle, walked through a plate glass door, and due to a mechanical failure, actually looped his helicopter. Now, for those of you who don't know much about helicopters, they're not supposed to loop. They do come apart. Boeing thought so much of his feat that they gave him a model of the CH-46 mounted upside down. Since the Marines wanted him to go back to Vietnam for a second tour, he thought he had a better idea of his life expectancy, and he ended up being an FBI agent chasing bad guys all over the country. They finally made him retire a few years ago. He was instrumental in starting the Brother Ralph Kroll Scholarship Fund, which exists today, and now he's heavily into golf and plays a mean game. But he's still a Marine at heart, so I'm proud to give you my brother, Pete Neese. Semper Fi, Pete. Congratulations. Appreciate it. You got to talk now.
Yeah. It's always risky to have a sibling do something like that. You're not sure whether you're going to get a roast out of a toast. Thank you, Paul. And thank you to everybody here. This indeed is an honor and humbled experience for me. First, I would like to thank my wife, Janie, for responding to Chaminade's request for submitting my nomination for consideration in the selection process for this year's Sports Hall of Fame. She was just a little girl growing up in Birmingham, Alabama when I began playing ball here at Chaminade. I'm grateful for her wanting me to be considered. I'm also aware that a couple of my classmates took time and effort to send recommendations, and I sincerely appreciate their time and thoughtfulness. And I thank the Lord for my being here today. He must have had a plan for me. In my freshman year, I attempted a sailor dive in the 6-foot water-deep outdoor old swimming pool, only to come up with a concussion and needed 18 stitches to my forehead. Also, I survived a catastrophic helicopter crash while as a pilot in the Marine Corps, and later walked away from a fixed-wing crash while flying for the government. I was first familiarized with Chaminade when my older brother began in 8th grade, and I followed the next year in the 7th grade. My first basketball, football, and track coach was Brother Ralph Kroll, and some of you old-timers may remember him. He was a don't do as I do as I say kind of coach, but he did have one-sided, shaved-off baseball bat that he occasionally encouraged players to come off the line. When did I play at Chaminade? Well, back when I played, it was so far back, as Johnny Carson's audience used to say. How far back was it, Johnny? It was so far back that Alaska and Hawaii weren't even states yet. For true. I've got to tell you a little story. When our family was transferred back here to St. Louis in 1986, I was at the Chesterfield Mall one day, and after about 26 years after graduating from here, when a classmate approached me with his son, and he said to his son, "This is Pete Neese. I told you about him." And as I extended my hand to shake hands with the teenager, the boy held my hand and stood there and looked me in the face, and he said, "I thought you'd be a lot bigger." Well, all I can say is that there are a lot of things that we don't have much control over. We did the best we could with what we had back at the time. Est Ovir and Semper Fidelis.
Mr. Neese, I have a little story you might be interested in. In 1977-78, I was coaching track with Eddie Donahue. We had a pretty good track team back then. And Eddie thought, you know, we had Ted Stepanovich and we had Jack Stevens and the Pandolfo brothers, and we had broken a lot of records that year. So Eddie thought it's about time we put the records up someplace so everybody could see them. So he got a board and we got all these little letters put up there, and this name Neese goes up from 1960. And we're, who is this guy? Because the times were fantastic. Well, Mr. Neese was up there several times, and those records that he set back in 59-60 stayed on that board almost 25 years. So I know you were a great track runner. I never got to see you play football, but I know you were very good in track. Congratulations. I was lucky enough to see this young, I call him a young man now, play in the late 70s. He was an outstanding athlete here at Chaminade, Bobby Housley. He is going to be presented to you tonight by another outstanding athlete from those years, Joe Yoffe.
Thank you. I met Bob his sophomore year, which would have been my junior year, when he made the varsity baseball team and became our catcher. He was a starter for all 3 years, earned all league and all district honors in his senior year. In football, he was a 2-year starter, even though he was declared by his daughter later on to be way too skinny to play football. You remember that? He was too skinny. Football, he was very good at. Played defensive end, played linebacker, both his junior and senior year as a starter, but baseball was definitely Bob's calling. He excelled in baseball, was a great catcher, an outstanding hitter who could hit the ball hard, hold the ball a lot, but he also hit the ball the other way once in a while. He went on from here to go to Merrimack Junior College, where he played in the Junior College World Series and was an all-region player both years there. He went from Merrimack to Stanford University, where he also played in the College World Series, and where we got to watch him on ESPN his senior year, and got to see him hit an opposite field home run against Texas, which was outstanding. He went from there, was drafted by the Texas Rangers, where he played 2 or 3 years there, and then decided baseball was done. And he got married and had 2 daughters, Stephanie and Allie, who we love. They're great girls, both Stanford graduates also. Bob is a great friend of mine, and Bob epitomizes what we've heard here tonight about Est Ovir, be a man. He's kind, he's generous, he helps people. Material possessions are not his gig. He likes people and likes to be around people. He's a great friend. I just want to throw out one stat that I know the 92 baseball team will really appreciate. In Bob's senior year in the summer league, he played for Thoma Boost Legion team, which was an outstanding team. They were 44-6 that year, came in second in the Legion State playoffs. They played 50 games. Bob drove in 70 runs in 50 games in District 10, which is unbelievable. Now, my friend. Hey, all right, Bob Housley.
I would like to thank Chaminade for this honor inviting me here today. It also, when the celebration was delayed, and Joe told me the new day, it's actually my mother's birthday. She unfortunately passed away 9 years ago, but it is her birthday today, so I think Joe and I shared a very tender moment on the phone. I live in Colorado, and he mentioned when the day was, and so I was very happy that it would be on this day on her birthday, because it is consistent with, I think my dad is here tonight. I would like to thank my dad and my mom, who were my biggest supporters at Chaminade and afterwards. And I think that's a very important part of being an athlete or excelling at anything, is being supported in a way that also lends you perspective. And I think my parents, they were always at every game, they were always enthusiastic, but they also knew that there was more to life than sports, that, you know, and Chaminade is about that too. And I just wanted to thank my dad. Also, it's kind of, it was pretty much of a humorous thing for us, because I was inducted some years back into the Merrimack Hall of Fame, and I wasn't able to make it. And my dad, I wrote a speech, and my philosophies tend to be a little esoteric at times. And my dad was kind enough to read my words at that ceremony, and I got a tape later for it. So I think he was happy that Joe actually, I mean, not that I wouldn't have come, but Joe said, Bob, if you're going to be part of this, you need to make sure you're going to show up. And I think my dad backed that idea also. It was rather an inauspicious beginning at Chaminade when I came. I don't know, Ted, if you remember, Ted Stepanovic's here, and Joe, Charlie Mace, the grass fights. They used to have what were called grass fights, and I don't know if that is still an acceptable practice, that you can do that anymore or not, but, so we lined up 2 by 2 across the field, and I'm looking across at the person that I'm going to have this grass fight with, which means that you're going to be trying to put the other guy's face in the dirt, right? And so I get Lenny Vitale, who happens to be a grown man already at that point, and I think I weighed about 120 pounds, you know. So that was my beginning to football, but although I would maybe beg to differ with Joe, I think I was big enough at one point where the grass wasn't being eaten so frequently as I got a little older. But I also would like to thank, I don't have any classmates other than Joe and Ted and Charlie that are here. Joe and Charlie were a year ahead of me, but I do have some good friends that are here from baseball times. There's Dave Parson and Jerry Sweeten and Joe Simpson. And I think when I hear about a Hall of Fame, I think about, well, what is fame? What is the good thing about sport? And to me, it's the feeling of being recognized and the power that you can have together. I think I feel humbled by what I could do myself, but I think the things that you remember are how well you can come together to help each other become more powerful or better at something than you would have been apart. And it's that camaraderie, but it's also something that's not an us versus them necessarily. It's not to put other people down, which I think happens too much, but I think it's something that you can build together, that you can believe in together, and that you can really achieve and be aware of and know how to do something well together, and then that goes on to life too. So, and I try to do that in everything I do now. I actually work with 3, 4, and 5-year-old children, and every day is a interesting athletic event with them. But I would like to say thanks again. Thank you very much.
Our next inductee is Scott Joseph. His brother Mark is going to induct him and present him to you. I'll never forget, I coached Mark. Mark came into our swim program. He's a freshman, and he kept telling me, wait till you see my little brother. Wait till you see my little brother. And I started to think, you know, Mark, you're a pretty good swimmer yourself. I can't wait to see your little brother. So we're going to have Mark Jostes come up and tell you all the good things that his little brother has done in those years of swimming. Mark Jostes to present Scott Jostes.
Thanks, KB. Like you said, my name is Mark. I graduated in 2000. That was also the same year I figured out how good my brother was going to be at swimming. When you're on a swim team, you're very aware of how fast your teammates are going, not only because you're cheering them on, because another reason is you don't want them to steal your spot on the relay team. So I figured out as a young senior that year that my brother actually, in his swimming outside of high school and younger in high school, was actually faster than half of my high school team, at age 11 or 12 probably. So I knew he was going to be good, and that's probably why KB alluded to the fact that I said, well, wait till my little brother gets here. He's actually swimming faster than half of this team. That team actually went on to play second at state, so it wasn't a slow team. And I think at times I always wished we overlapped a little bit and we could have swam together. But we didn't get the chance. Part of that's for selfish reasons, because I knew if I had my brother on my team, we probably would have won state that year. But he came into school a little bit later, and I'm going to go down his list of accomplishments that he did at Chaminade and at Texas University in Austin. Because if I didn't tell you, he wouldn't. He's a very modest and humble guy. So I feel like it needs to be mentioned. Let's start at Chaminade. He holds 7 Chaminade records. KB keeps a running total of top 10 times in school history, and I haven't seen the list recently, but I'm assuming that his name's probably still littered throughout the pages. And all those records still stand. He has 3 MCC conference records. He holds 1 Missouri State record in the 100 backstroke. This was actually when I found out when my brother was really good at swimming. He was one of those swimmers in high school where no matter what team you were on, kids stopped warming up, people stopped going to the bathroom, people stopped getting up to go to the concession stand. When he was going to swim or get ready to swim, people just stopped and they looked because they knew that something could happen, that they would witness history. So when he broke that state record that year, the whole place stood up and cheered, and I don't know how many people were at those meets, but at the time it seemed like hundreds. And it was a pretty cool moment. He won 5 state titles. He was one of the few swimmers in Missouri State history to win an event 3 times in a row. So he was state champion in the 100 butterfly sophomore, junior, and senior year. He has 11 MCC titles. He never lost a race as a sophomore, junior, or senior, except I think he lost 1 time as a sophomore at state. He got touched out. There are a couple awards that are, I guess, in his honor. 4 years Post-Dispatch All-Metro Swim Team. First team 3 years, second team 1 year. 2 years he was a Post-Dispatch Swimmer of the Year. 2 years he was a Missouri State Swimmer of the Meet, which is awarded to the swimmer with the most points in the state meet. He was a 2-time Missouri Athletic Club Male Swimmer of the Year, 12 times High School All-American, multiple top 16 high school times in the country. He was the MVP of the Chaminade swim team for 3 years. After he won this award 3 times, KB actually named an award after him. So he won his own award for the first time. It was called the Scott Jostes Great at State Award. It's given annually to the most dominating swimmer at the state meet. After his high school career, or I guess his junior year, he was selected to train at the United States Olympic Center in Colorado. After his high school career, the United States Olympic team coach, Eddie Reese, was coaching and still coaches the Texas swim team down in Austin. He visited a couple colleges. There was a couple colleges, just a couple, that wanted him to come swim. And he would always come back and we'd ask him, how'd you like that school? How'd you like that school? And yeah, it was all right. It's cool. And then he went to Texas and he came back and loved it. So we knew he was going there. And given that the United States Olympic team coach was there, he got a little bit better. He went to the Olympic trials when he was probably 1 week after he turned 19, placed 31st in the 100 backstroke. At Texas, he set 3 American records. He holds 3 Texas records, which is impressive considering the amount of Olympians that came through that school and that program. He has 1 NCAA record, 1 Big 12 individual title, several Big 12 relay titles, 2 NCAA relay titles. And then junior year, I was fortunate enough to witness when his team won the NCAA championship. He was a 9-time collegiate All-American, 4-time All-American, and with all this swimming and the hours in the pool and the weight room, he actually found time to be a 3-time Big 12 All-Academic. So he's currently enrolled in the accounting school down in Texas, and it's my honor to say congratulations, Scott. You deserve it.
I'm glad Kevin only invited him to say the nice things and not the poor things I did during all those accomplishments. Like Mark said, I went to school here from 7th grade through senior year. This is the first time I found the open bar on Chaminade's campus, however. But it's my honor to be here tonight and be introduced to this young but very prestigious Hall of Fame here at Chaminade. It's been 5 years since I've completed my academic career here, and over that time it's become clear that I would not be as developed or accomplished athletically without the help of the Chaminade faculty, in particular Kevin Brennan, our MC for the night. I had the opportunity to compete for him for 4 years, and on top of that, he was also my homeroom teacher for at least 3 out of those 4 years. And if that wasn't enough, he also made the mistake of hiring me to work for him during the summers up at Forest Hills, which I'm still surprised I didn't get fired from that job. Kevin, like the other faculty at Chaminade, were great role models for me during my career. I believe he had his 300th win while I swam for him, and I've heard rumors that if he gets another couple hundred, they'll increase the spectator seating at the pool from 1 row to 2. But in all seriousness, he's been a great influence on my life, and I can't thank him enough for everything he's done for me. My family, including my 2 deceased grandfathers, were extremely supportive and proud of my swimming career. The support and sacrifice my parents and family had made for me kept me motivated to strive for excellence day in, day out at the pool. I've never thought of myself as an overly talented athlete, and lucky for me, I only see that as part of the picture. The other part to me is work ethic, and the support and love that my parents and family have given me just determined me to have a strong work ethic every day in the pool and the weight room, no matter what I was doing for them. Can't thank my parents enough for the sacrifices they made financially and time-wise, just sitting in the car waiting for me to swim laps up and down the pool, which sounds awful. I'm not going to let my kids swim, for the record. But swimming it's opened doors that to experiences that I never thought I would have had the opportunity to be a part of. And without my parents, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be on a national championship team or to swim alongside of Olympians. So my family, Chaminade, and swimming made all these things possible and together contributed to who I am today. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Since I got to coach Scotty, and coaching was a relative term with him, because I think I was under orders, just keep him wet and we'll be okay when we get to state. But I thought I have to tell one story about him tonight. He did work for me at Forest Hills. And those of you that know what goes on out at Forest Hills, we get a little wild out there. Jimmy can attest to that now. When the swim team's the big thing out there. And when it comes time for conference, we all get a little bit wild and get the kids ready to go. And the tradition was always that myself and the guards would paint ourselves green on the last night of practice. And the tradition got started somehow that as the guards were painting themselves green, they would put a green handprint on the door of my office and write their name underneath it. So the one night, Scotty's ready to do this, and they're down there, and I get done with practice, and I come down, and I look at the door. There's not a handprint of Scotty. There's a butt print of Scotty. And it's still on my door today. That is true. Anybody wants to see it? Jimmy, is that not true? Jimmy sees that every day too. Our next inductee is Mr. Jim Prag. To put Jim in perspective, let me tell you, Jim was my freshman religion teacher and my freshman football coach. So that tells you either he's pretty old or I'm pretty old. I'm not sure which. Jim is going to be introduced tonight to you by our athletic director, Tom Fernandez.
Good evening. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the inductees tonight. I don't know if some of you realize, whether you're going as a coach or a player, the impact you have on other people, and people you'll never know. We had a golf tournament about a month ago, and I was sitting with some of the gentlemen from the class of '61. And I guess this evening it came up, and the name Bob O'Brien came up. And they said, oh my gosh, yeah, we remember Bob O'Brien. We were, little kids running around Chaminade. Man, that guy, what an athlete he was. The guy was unbelievable. And here are these guys who, again, graduated in 1961, so they're in their late 60s, and still, Bob, talking about you like it was a week ago, and they remembered your accomplishments. I thought was really, really neat. One common thread I've been seeing with all the inductees is it's unbelievable, the humility and the modesty. I don't think any of you ever set out to do this or to accomplish this, and I'm humbled by that, just how modest these guys are, and Jim Prag is certainly no exception. Jim called me a couple weeks ago and asked me if I would speak on his behalf, and Jim's waiting for me to just say something here, but I was honored by it. I really was, and there are people in this room who I know could do a much better job, but I was a little nervous. I remember as a young teacher here, I was actually head of the math department, and Mr. Gerker informed me that it was my duty as the department head that I had to get up and say something about Brother Eugene Feld. And those of you in the room who remember Brother Feld, I was scared to death. I was afraid if I'd say something wrong, he might charge the podium, or it was overwhelming. And I got to tell you, Jim, when I got off the phone with you, I had a similar feeling. It is a little overwhelming to stand up here and try and talk about a guy who's meant so much to this school, but I'm going to give it a shot. Jim began coaching golf in 1968, and if any of these facts are wrong, Jim will tell you about it. We began coaching golf in '68, coached for a couple years, took some time off, he returned and started coaching again in 1980 until his retirement in 2010. A lot of accomplishments in 33 years, and again, Jim's very humble, and he probably wouldn't mention a lot of this to you, but I don't even know if that's the reason we're here tonight for Jim, because there's so much more to him. But I will tell you that under his leadership, they won 4 team state championships. There were 4 individual state champions, 15 state medal winners, and 11 conference championships in 15 years. It's all pretty impressive. But again, it's not really why we're here. Jim dedicated 33 years of service to the Chaminade Golf Program and hundreds of golfers. Golf's a little bit different. Coaching golf's a little bit different than the other sports. The basketball and football with all the X's and O's. And Jim got teased about this quite a bit, I guess. But at the end of the day, Jim still was able to get these guys together. And I think Mr. Housleyden said it, that if you can bring people together and be successful, and that's exactly what Jim did. And he got these guys together each year, and he was successful with them. Spent countless hours organizing the schedule, putting together lineups, making certain that every player on the team had a fair shot at making that final cut when it came time to set that roster for state. I know some years Jim agonized over this part of the job because he wasn't concerned about putting together that winning team necessarily, but it really worried him that he's going to have to tell a kid or a couple of kids who were probably pretty talented that they weren't quite good enough to make that final cut. And Jim took that personally. He cared deeply about his players. If somebody had a bad round, Jim certainly would encourage him so that he was ready to go the next day. But I think of all the roles that Jim filled for us, I think his most outstanding was that he was a tremendous ambassador for our school. Jim always represented Chaminade with class and expected the same from his players. Jim was respected by almost every opposing coach and athletic director. He was so well respected by the coach and the athletic directors on our conference that the Metro Catholic Conference named an award after him in 2010. Every year this award will be given to someone in order to recognize their commitment and dedication to that better program at their school. Jim was the first winner of that award. Jim, congratulations on your award tonight. Thanks for taking good care of so many of our student athletes over the years. You've been a friend and a role model to many of the people in this room here tonight, many of our current coaches. Thanks for being an example of professionalism. Thank you for being a model of commitment and dedication. Thank you for being a living legend of a kind and gentle man. You're a good person, Mr. Prague, and I'm honored to have spent some years with you here at Chaminade. Jim Prague.
Wow, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. I have to excuse my voice is kind of going. Before I begin with some remarks that I prepared, I have to take advantage of an offer that was made to me at the table here a little while ago. The economy is pretty bad right now. Well, Mike Massa was sitting there, and he said he'd give me $1 if I work his name into my remarks. He said he would give me $2 if I would diss Mr. Brennan over here. So in order to get $3, you're no Mike Gander as an MC. So I get $3 for doing that, okay? Mike, get out your checkbook. NBA star David Lee. Pro soccer standout Brad Davis. Two-way football player at Mizzou, Mike, or Muggs McKee as my wife likes to call him. Two-time high school state golf championship, individual championship, Mike Sabo. He made me look good quite often. Joey Gonzalez, tennis team standout. All-state football player Ted Stevanovic, who's here tonight. An all-time favorite Chaminade athlete and coaching legend, Don Owens. Those are just a few of Chaminade athletes and coaches who were listed on last year's Hall of Fame who were inducted. After looking at that list, it quickly became very obvious to me and apparent that there are two types of people who get this award. The first type is a very, very, very talented, dedicated, hardworking athlete. And the second type is someone who is just lucky enough to be around a long, long, long time and surrounded by some of those people in the first group. I will let that up to you to decide which category I belong. As is often the case when getting an award like this, the first thing that come to mind are all the individuals who played such an important role in any success that we may have had. In my case, these people are the following: the parents who paid for all those golf lessons and club memberships and hauled their kids around to all those summer youth tournaments. Thank you. To my wife, who took care of our kids and everything else on those long days and weekends when I wasn't around. Carol, would you please stand? Thank you. To the alumni and friends of Chaminade, who helped to obtain quality practice and playing times on some of the best courses in the sub-metro area, need to thank them as well. To the Chaminade administration, athletic directors, I've known a few of those, assistant coaches who permitted me to hang around all those years doing something that was really fun, and trusted me and never interfered with anything that we did. Thank you. But most importantly, to the 500 to 600 young men who I was fortunate enough to be around for 33 golf seasons. It was truly a joy and a pleasure to be associated with all of them. They are the only reason that I am here tonight. Thank you to them. As a coach, my primary goal was to encourage each and every one of our golfers to always remember that they were part of a team and to never forget that their team represented something much bigger than themselves, namely their school and all the golfers and all the students and all the parents and all the faculty of Chaminade. The greatest pleasures that I ever received over the years came not from a victory, but came from the opposing coaches, our golf course employees, our country club pro, our tournament director, our spectator, our other golfers, our parents of other golfers, or even the hotel desk clerk where we may have stayed overnight, who would come up to me and say something like, "Your Chaminade kids are really a quality class group of kids." And then they would proceed to tell me why they said something like that. I'm proud to say that I heard such compliments quite often. That is what made the job not a job. However, there was one big drawback to all the success and recognition that the Chaminade Golf Program has garnered. Whenever someone found out that I was a coach of such a successful team, they would come up to me and ask me if I would give them some pointers and want me to be on their foursome because they presumed I knew and could execute some of the finer points of a good golf swing. And there are some guys in this room tonight that will attest to the fact that it is not the case. However, if I did play in one of those foursomes, those people quickly learned that you did not have to be a good golfer, a mediocre golfer, or even a bad golfer to coach a very successful team. In closing, let me wish the best of luck to the present golf team and their coach, Mr. Jack Wilson, who did very well this year, as well as to Mr. Tom Fernandez, who said all those really nice things tonight, and all his coaches, who continue the proud Chaminade tradition of putting a quality group of young men on the field of play. A group of young men who learn much more than the skills of the sport, but learn the life lessons that will hold them in good stead for all their lives. Lessons that just make them a little better husband, a little better father, a little better businessman, a little better leader, or church member, or citizen of the world. That was so demonstrated tonight when you heard these guys talk. I also am extremely humbled to be in a group of inductees that include Mr. Chaminade and Don Ohms. That is a very humbling experience. Thank you for this tremendous honor.
That's yours.
When you get old, that happens.
I did want to mention, Scotty, the reason we have an open bar tonight is because Mike Vander is not the MC. Every time he's MC, we can't have an open bar. Our last inductee tonight is going to be one of our sports teams. When Jim put this committee together 2 years ago, they decided that every year we would honor one of our teams. This year, the honor goes to our 1992 state championship baseball team. I'm going to ask the two coaches, Leroy Engard and Mike Throw, to come up and present the team to you. Every time I see Leroy, I always say to him, I thought you were dead. And he says,
Not really.
Not hardly.
It's all yours. Go ahead, Mike. You want to start?
Well, since the precedent has been set, I want you to know that I'm taking names, boys. Anybody wants their name mentioned, I'm open to do that for a small price. It may come as a surprise, but I've never really spoken at a Hall of Fame anything before. And after tonight, that may never happen again. But I'm truly honored to, I thought Coach Younger would have learned his lesson by now, but he asked me the other day to say a few words. And originally I passed, and I thought, well, back in 1992, when you guys won the state championship, we had our baseball banquet the week before. And so we really never got to properly really honor you. And so that's really why I want to say something to you tonight. My name is Mike Throw. I've been here 31 years. That's exactly half my life. I know you guys are sitting there going 31 times 2. Yes, okay. Yes, I'm 62 years old. I promise not to be too long because I am 62 and I do have to go to the restroom. I've been happily married for 23 and a half years. Not sure Mrs. Throw has been, but I have been. Just to talk a little bit about this particular team, I want everyone to leave here tonight to appreciate exactly how good they were. First of all, the record speaks for itself, 26-0-1. And of course, we all know that the only reason that was a 1 there is because at the state, the day we played St. Louis U High down at the stadium, we had to get off the field because the Cardinals and Braves were going to play. So the game ended in a frustrating 3-3 tie. And the boys always wanted to settle that, and they thought they might get the chance in the state title game. But unfortunately, St. Louis U High didn't make it that far that year. All right. The character of this team can be summed up in a story about one of the players. And I'm glad he's here tonight, and that's Andy Stan. Coach, I don't know if you remember this or not, but one day after practice, it was about our 6th game in or so, Andy had been struggling a little bit at the plate. And Coach called Andy over and said, Andy, I'm not going to start you the next game. I want you to get back on track a little bit. And Andy said, okay. And then he proceeded to turn and sprint off the field. I mean, he sprinted. And Coach Younger then turned to me and said, Coach, you see that? I said, yeah, I do. He said, I can't bench a kid like that. And he didn't. We got back in the locker room and he called Andy in. There was no benching. And that's what this team was. This team was a group of kids with heart. They were a group of kids who wanted to win, who loved playing together, They had poise, and they were ice cold on defense. We had pitching that was a dream. These boys threw 5 shutouts, including a semifinal state game. 5 games in which our opponent only scored 1 run. Twice they scored 2 runs, and only 5 games where they scored as many as 3. That's 17 out of 27 games, 63%, the opponent scored 3 runs or less. Only 3 teams scored more than 5 runs, and only 1 scored as many as 7. I'd have to assume that most of these runs were earned because the team never committed an error. My uncle, who was a pretty good baseball man himself, told me he never saw a high school team throw the ball to the right base as much as this one did. Our team averaged 8.5 runs a game. Opponents averaged 2.7. That's pretty good. You outscored your opponents 231 to 73. Just sort of lost in the shuffle, I think, a little bit. You had pitching, you had defense. You guys were fierce at the plate. Not too many people wanted to face you over in the Edwardsville tournament. Edwardsville ducked you. And for the entire season, so did DeSmet. Heart, hustle, fierce, aggressive, smart. You other inductees, particularly you guys that played baseball, you would have loved to have been on this team with these guys. Being undefeated says it all. You were not only the best in the state of Missouri in '92, in my book you remain one of the best ever in the history of state baseball. And to Coach Engert, I just want to say I appreciate you letting me be your assistant for 3 years. Sometimes the right timing is right, the right person comes along at the right time to do the right job, and that was certainly the case with you. Fellows, when Coach Engert came here, he already had the 5th highest winning percentage in the state of Missouri. Still does, to this day. Over 300 wins, and when he came here, 97 losses. You guys were mentored by one of the best. Not just you, we as coaches were mentored by Coach Engert. And it shows up in the way we handle things even today. So again, it is my honor to have been associated with all of you. Your class people, class families, parents. You were wonderful, wonderful, and your boys reflected that. And Mr. Saunders, I still apologize to you for slamming your hand in that van that night down in Clearwater. I know it's a little mangled there even today, but your sacrifice and your suffering helped produce our state championship, I think. Anything for the team. That's the way they were, see? Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thanks, Mike. You know, Tom Fernandez told me cut it short. And Tom, I forgot my notes. I had to give him a copy of them. Do you have that handy by chance? You know, it's a real privilege and honor to represent a 1992 program in baseball. You know, I've been around the horn a few years, and to represent a group of young men is a real honor. And I tell you, and we would right now would like to thank the selection committee, and I think Fernandez is captain of that committee, right, Tom, for selecting the group to be a part of that, okay? We'd also like to congratulate all the other inductees that have been previously up here this evening. It's a real honor. You know, some of the inductees, Bob, he and I sit at basketball games and second guess the coaches during a game, okay? He's been doing it all those years, and I've been doing it longer than he. And Bob Houseleden, I recruited him to go to Merrimack when I was helping Lesman at Merrimack. He was one of the 5 best hitters I ever saw in amateur baseball. I saw him hit a ball over at Merrimack on top of the roof of the gym from the home plate. And if you know where that diamond, the way that diamond is selected, that is a tremendous hit. That group back there, those 2 tables, I call that the Rittner group back there. Joe Yaffe, Parsons is sitting there. I was at Rittner 35 years before I came to Chaminade. The lady is here tonight who called me and said, Lee, she was a neighbor and a friend of ours, there's a biology job open at Chaminade. She knew I was looking to go to retire from Rittner. And she said, I think they'll be looking for a coach. You could do some coaching too. She said, would you be interested? And I said, you know, I think I really would be. And you know, this goes now to the families that are involved with Rittner. She said, I'll set up an appointment for you. This was a mother. That's the kind of communication the parents had with the administration here at Chaminade. After I started here, they started a father's club, okay? And the coaches were really leery. And I kept telling them, man, do it. But make sure they know that their job is to help the program, not to criticize it and second guess it. Boy, it's easy to be a second guesser, isn't it? Right? And as a coach, you can't really do that. If you have a good kid, if he had a chance to do it over, maybe he'd do it a little differently since he wasn't successfully the first time. But that's why it's such a privilege for me. I'd like to take a minute to introduce the coaches besides Coach Rowe. Coach Mass is out there, and he's got his checkbook, and he's got a lot of money in there, Jim. Okay? And Coach Wibbemeyer couldn't be here. He expressed his regrets. He was on vacation, and he already had set that up. I see Jim Pragg. You know, Jim Pragg wasn't only a colleague of mine when I came here, but he was a friend. I could go to him, and we could visit about a lot of things. The things that he mentioned about the parents being a positive influence on their sons is so important. We've kind of lost that element. I still get to Chaminade, Rittner, and John Burroughs. I can see the changes that are taking place. And I put some of the responsibility on the parents. You have an obligation. You have to handle it, whether it's sometimes hard or sometimes enjoyable. I'd like to also take this minute to introduce my wife, Joy. If you'll stand, please. We're gonna have our 59th anniversary in August. She's really old, isn't she? No, not really. I'm older than she is, really. Thanks, hon, for all your love and patience. I really, really appreciate it. Now, you know, to get onto the things now that we're really here for, I'd like to introduce the players, and I thought a little bit about how to do this, but since Tom Fernandez has got the pressure on me time-wise, I think he wants to get to the bar, because it's still free, right? I saw you go up and get a beer, right? Right? We'll start over here, and I'd like for the player to stand. I'll recognize him. I hope I can remember his name. If we can, please, just stand up. Tom Henrahan, outfielder. Okay. Over here, Ben Volk, left-handed pitcher. He was 6-0 that year. John Saunders, he'll lead off hitter, third baseman. Tim Brickler, left-handed pitcher, first baseman. I tell you, if the count was 3-2, man, he threw a curveball and you were a dead duck in high school. Eric Marf, first baseman, outfielder. Jack Roberts, right fielder. Derek Falb, center fielder, pitcher. Where's Mark Gertner? Oh, Andy Stan, left fielder. Is Mark Gertner still here? Mark was here earlier. You know, his dad and I graduated from Roosevelt High School in 1947. And his dad was a judge, and Mark is a lawyer now. And you know, I talked with Matt Cavanaugh twice, and he's sorry that he can't be here. And I talked to Kevin Berger, pitcher, infielder, and he's sorry that he can't be here. Also, and Alex Eckelman is helping the Cleveland Indians beat the Cardinals tonight, okay? He's a scouting director for the Cleveland Indians. He was the captain of this 1992 team, really. Left here and went up to Ohio State, who the coach there happened to be a captain for me at Rittner in 1966. And Alex Eckelman is a part of Ohio State University's Hall of Fame. Can you believe that as a player? Usually you have to be some big administrator or some big athletic director in order to get a privilege like that. When I saw his stats, Bob Todd, who was the captain and the coach, captain for me and the coach up there, when I saw his stats, I couldn't believe it. I tell you the day, now see, here's where Tom Fernandez is right. Man, when we talk about baseball, I could talk till the cows come home. When Todd came to scout Alex, we went to his home. He had a batting cage in his room. And he took some practices with them. He took some practice swings in front of Todd. And when we left, he said, my God, you talk about commitment. And that's what it really takes. That sacrifice equals success. We have to be able to give up something in order to gain something else, okay? There are two young players up here that I haven't introduced yet. One, Blake Allen, who was a freshman catcher on that team, and Matt Poling, who was a pitcher on that team. Do I have all of them? All the players? Well, I really appreciate it. You're coming. You can tell I'm a little emotional. I always am, really, and I think, to me, if I have an emotional player, boy, I'm for him. I'm right in his hip pocket. Because that means he's sincere in what he's trying to do, whatever it happens to be. I'd like to relay a few highlights of the 1992 season, if I still got time. You got the Tom? I had the clock on you, Tom, and you went over time, okay? When we went to Florida that year, by the way, we used the Philadelphia Philly facility in 1991 and 92. There's a brochure over there on that. And the general manager was a gentleman by the name of Thomas. He had two sons go to school here. His one son, the oldest one, was a catcher. He's still trying to make it. The youngest son went to Washington University and played as far as he could and should have with his ability, and he's now in business, really. But Blasingame handled their spring practices, all their drills, and one of their chief scouts was Butch Hackens, who was a player at Rittner High School, and I knew real well. He set it up that we could use their practice facilities when they got finished at 2 o'clock every day. And you know, I used to use Rittner teams and players as examples to the Chaminade players here. And if it would have been Rittner players that could have gone down and used that field to practice on, they had given their right arm. And I think eventually the Chaminade players felt the same thing. You know, I hesitate to talk about a team a lot. I'd rather talk about a program, because you teach the freshmen, and when they get to be seniors, they heard it. Man, now we're trying to hone our skill to develop that. But anyway, we had the opportunity to go down there. We boarded a bus. Jack Millet's from Merrimack. Okay, you may have known him, Bob. Okay, he had a bus company. I contacted him, and he drove the first route, and he met somebody along the way and that picked us up. But three fathers went along. They're here tonight, okay? And you talk about having fun. My heavens. Just think being on a bus with 27, 28 youngsters that are 16, 17, and 18 years old. And it was really great. We wandered a little bit. It rained, the roof leaked a little, if I remember correctly. Okay, well, when we got down there, we had housing. You got to see the Philadelphia Phillies practice. The Yankees were there. Toronto was there. I remember taking the three catchers. We went over to Toronto and we watched some catching drills. I had the coach come over and talk to us about different techniques. And he talked about major league skills, AAA skills, AA skills, all the way down the line, really. And it was important that the players, if they were interested, that they could really pick up some of this information. Well, as the week went along, we ended up with the three fathers. We selected 3 teams. They had to choose their son on their team, and then they chose the others. Okay, they each had 9, and we played exhibition games. We couldn't play any games down there legally. Okay, the state had a regulation date. All right, and we played games and so on. And in one situation, a batter, don't remember the names, he hit a base hit to right, a line drive to right center, went all the way to the fence. He's going for 3, okay? And those of you that know the game of baseball, and I wish I would have known Phil Tutt. Man, I'd have enjoyed sitting down talking baseball with him. You had to see the outfielders line up to get the throw to third base. Man, and you could see it straight up the left. This outfielder had to go to the fence. The other outfielders telling him where to throw the ball. And the other guys are lining them up, and the throw needs to go here on the glove side, not over here where the right fielder yesterday for the Cardinals threw a ball on a relay. It's got to be right here. Okay, and man, I'm telling you, 3 throws, it was at third base, and they had an out. I said to Coach Thoreau, I said, man, Coach, we may have something here. For a high school team to do something like that is really outstanding. Now, you have to know a little bit about the fundamentals of the game in order to understand that. Okay, but that's the way it started. And I think E.J. Saunders had the best team. His fundamentals that he taught, I had to go back to our chalk to our book, because he had a couple changes. You tagged up at third on a ground ball, not a fly ball. See, we had a lot of fun. You know, I think in a good program, you try to emphasize 3 things: fundamentals, fun, and win. Okay? Kids don't have fun anymore, let me tell you. Even in the little leagues, Bob, with your young kids you're talking about, I would think and hope that they're having fun with you. You gotta have fun. It can't be just all work. Same thing's true in a classroom. You gotta have some laughs sometimes. The kids gotta relax. If we knew how to relax our mind, Jim, we could have retired years ago, right? A relaxed mind, everything else relaxes. That's how you become successful, whether it's a big business sale or whether it's trying to win a particular ball game. Okay? As we go through the tournament in the districts, all right, we're playing, I think it was the second game, Jack Roberts hit a ball that had to go 420 feet over the left center field fence at Baldwin. That's just the kind of power that they had, really. That's why they had the enthusiasm and they gave the effort that was necessary for that to take place. In the finals, we had a relief pitcher, Derek Falb, came in. I forget the inning anyway, but they had a guy on third, and he's warming up, and he says to me, Coach, what pitch do you want me to pick him off at third? And you know, the right-handed pitcher uses the same move at third base as the left-hander uses at first. Now that left-hander, if he's good, he cheats. Royce had a certain spot at Rittner, was a pole that he looked at, okay? And that way he could cheat and make it more difficult for the umpire really to pick it up. Well, I hadn't even thought about this with Derek. He knew it was a bad throw, it cost you a run. Okay, at first, if it's a bad throw, the guys that goes to second and maybe third, it hasn't really cost you a run yet, really. And you know what? In the second pitch, he picks him off at third base, really. And it was a crucial situation. He had done that a number of times throughout the season, really. And see, little things like that are so important. Playing Washington then in the sectionals, I have a big picture at home on my bulletin board where we had 2 home runs in a row. Derek Falb hit one, and the next pitch, Alex Eckelman hit one. You should have seen the players at home plate. My heavens, it's great. Now look, we're not even at Columbia yet, are we? Are you getting tired, Tom? You know, the players were as enthusiastic as Coach Thoreau and I was, really. We stole 144 bases that year. You know, I thought 1966 at Rittner we had 128. And I thought, my God, 144, I figured it out, it's 4 a game, really. But speed's part of my game, really. You can use it offensively and defensively. And see, those kids bought into all those things. All right, in closing, I'd like to say this. Okay, she's happy, all right? So is my wife. My wife said, don't be too long. You know, in closing, as we look at these players, boy, are they successful in life. And you know, the reason they're successful in life is all that effort and academics that they got here at Chaminade. But it really comes from the parents. They're as good as you are. And it takes effort in order to develop the minds and bodies of the young individuals, really. And that's why it paid off. 1992 class here at Chaminade is one of the best classes I had ever seen. I'm talking about as a group now, not just the baseball, but everything. I had a biology class of 15 in it. 5 of them are doctors out of that one class. My wife and I went to all their weddings. Oh, again, the last wedding, one lad says to me, hey, Coach, let's talk about our bio class. You know why? Because we had fun. And then they learned, and it's so doggone important. Listen, thanks a lot. I'd like to... Father Ralph, I'd like to thank the administration, the faculty, the maintenance department, and the secretaries here at Chaminade. Really, it's all part of one. Thanks again.
Can we bring all the baseball players up to get a picture with the coaches?
I'm about ready to let my
What are you guys up front?
Hey, Sue.
Matt, you hold.
Okay. We'll have Matt hold it. You got it.
I'm standing by Volk.
Matt, hey, you know what? We're all
on the other side, Mike.
How you doing, man?
doing all right. See the last time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Figures
Could have been a possibility.
That's my
All right, you got to take another one. I wasn't looking. Come on.
Come on, Mike.
Good? All right, real good. You guys got to go with me, Mr. Madison.
Good job, Coach.
Ben Bolt.